Oh, Austin. I was like, who's the new person? It's Austin. What's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man.
Yeah, always comes up as Kaylee McKinley.
I was like, I didn't recognize that name. Just getting warmed up. So I was telling him I was going to talk about like I always talk about human movement, but I think maybe it's time to talk about gym movement. And I have some thoughts and ideas we can bounce, and then also how to develop like I guess a system for training fitness. So I've been working on like creating. So Sean, like that kind of like that program you sent your email for is
Yeah.
trying to look at mental health the same way we do physical health and approaching training it the same way, taking that same concepts from like training and programming, how can we apply it to behavior change, mental health. um, so I wanted to talk about like looking at systems. I'm using the system I use for exercise and fitness to apply it to mental health. So how to create your own fitness system to approach health. Everyone hires a coach, which I think is cool too. But sometimes we have to figure things out on our own, which I think we should all do. So what do you guys want to talk about? Anything of that interest you or somewhere you want to take it? The gym movement, not much to talk about. I think we all know what those are. Um, so is there any topics that you guys questions, pressing issues, things you want to talk about, training, diet, nutrition?
I have a question about applying a specific piece of equipment.
Sure. I'm here for it.
I was actually going to text you about this because I just had a conversation with the head weightlifting coach because he's once again getting back into a lot of West Side stuff. So he's now trying to use a reverse hyper for everything and everyone.
Okay.
What is your like? How would you use the reverse hyper if you use the reverse hyper at all?
Yeah, that's my initial response is I don't. I think
See,
I think it's the
same.
the world's greatest coaching desk. I used it for everything but reverse hypers. So I did
Okay.
like a lot of single leg and like shoulder work. I'll attach bands to it or like ratchet straps to like train like kind of quick impulse stuff. But I've never actually used a reverse hyper for the purpose of like low back or reverse hyper work. I don't think it's that. I think it's overrated.
I 100% agree.
Um, I never liked it. Nobody can ever do it right, and everybody it ends up causing more issues than anything. I would rather do like a Jefferson curl or literally anything else. Yeah, that's my opinion. I
Yeah.
think it can be used for a lot of cool things, like with like hip stuff and like bands and a lot of like really creative ab work. But I don't know if it's worth investing in. Like you saw, I think you saw my post today. Like I still think like I put the rack together. I was like, the rack is the single most like biggest expense in a gym, and it's only used for one piece of equipment, and it's a barbell. I just think it's wild, right? I
Yeah.
never looked at it that way, but like it's just everybody's first purchase is like a bar and a rack. I mean, it doesn't have to be, and it got me thinking. When I took a year off of like the barbell is when like a lot of my transitions changed, like how I approach and view movement and training is when I took time, I guess, retired from powerlifting. Um, when I stopped using a barbell for a year, and then COVID happened, we couldn't get into the gyms. So all I had was kettlebells. So I think that's one of the best things people can do if they're not competing. That's how I got into the idea of like mixing up your training as a power lifter and like not training like a power lifter year round, especially since most of power lifters aren't going to be professional power lifters. Um, I think that would lead to less overuse injuries. So yeah. So anyways, that's my opinion on the reverse hyper. I'm not sure it does what we say it does.
Same.
I don't know. Just because Louis says something doesn't mean it's gospel. Um, West Side guys are. It's like any other thing, though. Like politics, I think when you start to put yourself into camps in the fitness field, it just. So I don't know if you guys know about like RPR when it came out, like
Mhm.
JL and Cal Dietz and Chris Corfus. Like I was a part of that when it got started at the spot. Like so, I worked with JL to help develop that. And I remember talking to my one chiropractor who was like a mentor to me. He said, don't become an RPR guy because then you pigeonhole yourself. You don't leave yourself a lot of room to like, I mean, you do to change your mind, but if you develop a system that's called RPR and you change your mind, I just, so it's the same thing with like West Side. I don't prescribe to West Side. You know, I've learned from his teachings and books, but I don't agree with some of it. I also think Louis ahead of most coaches, or he was. He's smarter than people give him credit for. It's funny, everybody likes to take his concepts and ideas, but then they badmouth him. And
Yeah.
it's weird. I don't know if strength and conditioning I mean, but if it wasn't Louis, it would have been someone else. I think someone else would have, you know, the guys he learned from on like box squatting and all that, you know, they were already doing that stuff. It just wasn't publicized. You read about it and they're using these different types of equipment out in Culver City, California. So, but you have to, yeah, just because Louis says it's use a reverse hyper doesn't mean you have to use it. There's a million ways to train. What does it actually train though, Sean?
I mean, supposedly it's supposed to be a whole posterior chain thing. I've always only felt my low back and like, I guess my lower glute.
Yeah, that's the same. I always have trouble feeling like, what are we supposed to be feeling? I don't know. It's just,
Yeah,
I like a 45-degree hyper better.
I
that
love
was
those.
that was the first piece of equipment we bought for the clinic was the 45-degree hyper. I think is the most, when it comes to like spine care and low back and like learning how to like hinge and use your hips better. I think the 45-degree hyper is the most versatile and best piece of equipment for it.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Hands down. It takes the legs out of it, and then you can do rotation, you can do lateral flexion, you can do single leg, you can train hip extension. That is what that's when I actually feel my low back is when I use a 45-degree. Now I feel a reverse hyper when I just use when I just use my body weight also. But I don't feel it when I use weight. I have a tendency to, I don't know. Anyways, Jason, how are we doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. These were just kind of, there was a lot of new people in the group, so I was going to talk about like gym movements, like squatting and deadlifting. But a lot of these guys here are either coaches or have a lot of experience in the gym, so it's kind of an open forum right now. So if you have anything you want to ask, or how you feeling, how's your back feeling, how's your body feeling, or
It's getting better. So
yeah,
it's been good. Haven't added much weight into doing stuff yet. Just more body weight stuff, kind of around the house.
yeah,
You know, as I'm working and stuff like that. And just the movements that you have on the page that you recommended.
cool.
So with my back and those things.
And so, what's the next step or plan, or to help build that confidence?
I just slowly probably add some dumbbell work. I don't, I'm really green with the gym stuff, so I don't.
What'd you say
know
about the
much.
gym stuff?
I'm very new to it, so I don't
Okay.
know much of what to do. So just,
Perfect. Well, I guess this could be a good conversation then, because we have a lot of experience here on getting started in the gym. So Sean, I would ask for your input on this. I'm going to give my input. So let's say Jason's got very little experience, or he hasn't been in the gym in a while. Where do we start him? What do we do? He comes brand new client to you. Jason has a history of low back pain. He wants to get out of pain. He wants to build confidence in the gym. Where do we start?
I mean, I'd start wanting to know like see his squat and hinge patterns. Just say like, hey, are you doing anything there that we need to quickly address, and see what tweaks you need to go from there, and then start building off of that.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I would do too. So we talk about human movement quite a bit. Our joints have ranges of motion that we've all agreed upon in the healthcare industry, that between these numbers is where your normal human joint range is. And then you would just want to strengthen that. So, you look at the fitness industry has not reduced. the fitness industry has come up with what they would say is the 5 fundamentals of human movement, which is the squat, the hinge, the push, the pull, and then the carry. Or the lunge. It depends who you talk to. I think everything's a push and a pull, right? You have upper body push pull and you have lower body push pull. Deadlift is you're pulling shit off the ground. Squat is you're pushing away the ground. But that was too simple, so we came up with more complicated things. But yeah, Sean's right. We want it. So learn those patterns. Is learn what a squat is. So for me, it's a vertical pelvic movement. And then what a hinge is, which is a horizontal pelvic movement. Yes, Sean, it is. But if we want to really get into people will be like, what are you talking about?
I know. I'm sorry.
Yes, it is technically. But because we have to remember, like, going to the gym is just exercise. And it's typically the same patterns over and over and over and over that we train, just slight variations. We raise the foot, we raise the heel, we raise the toes, right? It really does simplify like the compound movements we can do in the gym. So a push is anytime you're pushing something away from you. Okay, so we call it vertical or horizontal. Are you pushing something overhead or are you pushing it away like a bench press? And then your pull is going to be the same thing. Pulling into you or pulling down to you, right? So there's your horizontal and vertical push and pull. Those are usually reserved for upper body. And then you have a hinge and then you have a squat. So the way I like hip and knee dominant a little better to help us understand what moves first. So in a squat, the knees should move first. Now, yes, there are different styles like hybrid styles that you can use to maximize the amount of weight that you are lifting. But for most people, a squat should be a knees first, vertical pelvis and rib cage movement. And what I mean by that is like the pelvis and rib cage should stay stacked. So if I have this in my low back's here and I have an arch there, I lose that. But if I stay here and I squat down, it's vertical. And when I stand up, it's vertical. So that's what I'm looking at when I'm looking at a squat and a hinge. Now a hinge, if this is my pelvis and I push my hips back, there's a horizontal movement on my pelvis. I still keep a stacked position, but there's horizontal and there's vertical movement. That's how I differentiate between the two. Or you can say hip dominant and knee dominant, or you can say squat and a hinge. This is why we need agreed upon words in our industry, because there's just too much. But yeah, so get really good at the squat, get really good at the hinge, get really good at a knee dominant and using your hips. Okay. So then we have to look at like joints. So that's why knowing how the joints move, right? How does the knee move? How do the hips move? So then we can start to, fine tune things. But push pull, knee dominant, hip dominant, and then locomotion, so carrying things. I don't know why that's a fundamental human movement, but locomotion, like lunging, single leg work, I guess, could be part of that. But I guarantee if you just approach like a progressive overload of getting really good at those for the next 2 to 3 months, you're going to give yourself a good foundation. Like you have to hone in on those movements because they are used no matter what the implement is you're going to do some style. What's good about those is they're very general movements. So they help build general strength. So that's why it's good but it's also, for someone who's a beginner, I don't know, Sean, did Jordan Shallow post this the other day? If you can't balance on one foot, you shouldn't squat on 2 feet. Was that him that said that? I swear.
No, but I think I'm pretty sure he said something like that before.
He said that for years. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't disagree. The reason we can squat with 2 feet is because we can handle more load. So I mean that's why you go to a powerlifting competition. It's a bilateral symmetrical stance. I like the idea of that we're asymmetrical creatures, so our training should be unilateral for the most part, unless you're competing in a barbell sport. A barbell allows us to handle more load, so we can build a lot more general strength, which is why I like to rotate it in. So if you got really good at those movements, Jay, with, let's say, just pick an implement, a kettlebell or dumbbells, or even a barbell, you're still going to want to learn those patterns, your push, pull, hinge, squat. I'm not going to say carry anymore. So your push, pull, your hinge, and your squat. If you get really good at those movements, general strength, and then you start to fine tune it, right? You got to get really good at like just the basic concepts of gym movement. But I feel that those who have good body control or know how to move their joints tend to learn the gym movements much better. There's less things to address from a movement standpoint, if that makes sense. You're aware of how your body works. So like, again, if we go like rib cage, pelvis, and you don't realize like this is your pattern most of the time, we got to spend time drilling you to get to this position. So I could have you squat and try to cue you out of that, or I can give you movements before, like part of your warm up that helps say like, you know, ribs down, hips under. And then when we go to squat, my cues are usually ribs down, hips under, because we've been cueing it from like, hey, remember on that drill, we tucked our hips. Remember on that drill, we brought our ribs down. Because once you have a good understanding of how your body works, then it gives you better solutions to the problem. Because that's all it is. Like squatting is just a problem solving, and your body is going to use a solution it always uses. So if we're like this, and that's its go-to solution, that's all it knows. But if we can introduce possibly new patterns or solutions to the problem that may be more advantageous, it's kind of like what my job is as like a movement professional, is try to give you more options to the, you know, problem solving for movement. Because if you use the same option all the time, you're limited in what you can do. You don't have much variability in your movement. You're not capable of doing as much or getting to explore as much. You're confined if you always use the same problems. It's like it's the SAID principle, right? Right? Or is that the word I'm looking for? You just adapt. You get strong at the things you do and weak at the things you avoid. That's why those general movement patterns are really good at just building general strength through full ranges of motion. So again, the patterns are always going to be the same. It's just rotate the implements. You don't necessarily need to rotate them to the, like, you know, people are like, oh, rotate my squat every week. I'm going to do this, you know, wide stance, short stance, close stance, which you can do, right? Just squat in a position that's normal for you and you can worry about everything else later. Like, can you squat comfortably? And that's where we start. But just change the tools. So I'm going to squat with kettlebell, 1 kettlebell, 2 kettlebells. I'm going to squat with just dumbbells, right? Josh knows all about that, trying to get a heavy ass dumbbell up for a goblet squat. Like, it's no joke, right? So now you're building all kinds of full body strength to try and how to figure out how to get a 100-pound kettlebell here. And I think like learning how to do that's going to have a ton of tremendous carryover for any barbell movement. Again, yeah. So what I would do is whatever you have access, so whatever piece of equipment you find least intimidating or most comfortable with right now, whether it's dumbbells or kettlebells, is where I would start.
Okay.
Then I would learn I would be training, you know, my push. So bench press, is just training through the full range of motion. Like if I have a dumbbell and I'm laying down and bringing it all the way down and going all the way up, letting that rotate at the top and coming all the way down and letting it rotate, letting the scap, you don't necessarily rotate, but letting the scap travel around, right? So training through the full range of motion. You go to a lot of coaches, they'll actually cap that range. They'll say, hey, chest up, bring your shoulder blades together, and like you just stop halfway here and then, you know, train to full range. Yeah, that's what I would do. So start with whatever implement you're most comfortable with. I would start doing more endurance based. What I mean is like week 1 would be sets of 8, week 2 would be sets of 10, week 3 would be sets of 12, and then maybe either change the implement or change the weight and start again. Okay. So like week 1, your goal would be, let's say goblet squat, 30 pounds for 8 reps. And then week 2, it would be 30 pounds for 10 reps. And week 3, it would be 30 pounds for 12 reps. You got stronger, right? You were doing more weight, we're doing more volume. And then the following week, week 4, you can increase the weight and go back down to 8 reps. So if you're at 30 pounds for the first 3 weeks, the next 3 weeks, you do 40 pounds. You can play around with those sets and rep schemes. Go back I think a couple videos ago I posted about how to create a program. I don't know if you were on that call. But I show how to kind of structure those things. So taking the push, pull, hinge, squat, and how to put it into a 3-week template, and then how to program the sets and reps. I did a call on that a couple weeks ago. So
Okay.
that's where I would start, is whatever's going to get you in there and learning those movements and getting you confident and more comfortable. So whether that's working with a coach, or just self-education, right? Like, just don't read the first thing. Yeah, use a box for the goblet squat. I'm assuming Josh was talking about. I thought you meant for squatting too. But yes, for the goblet. I don't know. I think you should picking it up from the ground. I think that's just as impressive. I think using it off of maybe a max set, you use it off a box.
I mean, if you want to dislocate a rib, by all means, try and strongman that from the floor.
I don't know. Maybe you weren't
Good.
strong enough to do that. It's a strength issue.
So what's the best way to get better with my hand on the hinges, but it's always inflames my back? Anything that I do with that?
Yeah.
Control your ribs. Sorry.
What'd you say? No, Sean, what'd you say?
I said you probably have to learn how to control your ribs.
So what we have to think about when we actually hinge, it's kind of the pelvis rotating. The pelvis, it's really our spine that's going this way, because the spine's connected to the pelvis. Everyone talks about their SI joint, right? If it's those two little nubs on the back where your pelvis is, that's where the pelvis meets the spine. And when the spine tilts one way, when the pelvis tilts one way, the spine will actually tilt the other. So that's why we have to gain control of the spine, or as Sean says, being able to control your ribs, because if the ribs are here, then it automatically we lose our spine, the curvature of our spine, right? So if I stick my chest out, I lose the alternating curves of my spine. I just have one big round spine, right? But if I bring my ribs down, now I have a round upper back that goes one way, and then my lower back goes the opposite, right? It's like a S. I know that's a terrible thing, but our upper back's round this way, and then the lower back's kind of round in, right? And that's how our spine works. It's alternating curves. So making sure you have the range of motion in the rib cage, the pelvis, and the spine, because in a hinge, the spine, the pelvis, and the rib cage all have to stay almost like locked in as it tilts forward, right? Does that make if it doesn't make sense, just let me know, and I'll try to. It's hard to do with my little Zoom box, right? So it honestly, like, Jay, if it's a matter, like, if that's the one movement that gives you an issue, like, let's just hop on a Zoom call and get it fixed, right? Like let me coach you. You need to get it coached through. I think the hinge is one of the harder movements to do on our own, and to get a professional eye, like, for 20 to 30 minutes to help you with a hinge, I think is a good investment for you. So if it's a matter of just hopping on a call, and it's like, I can Sean or I or anybody in the group, like, I can fix your hinge in like 5-10 minutes. Okay. And if that's the issue, give me the biggest issues, like, let me help you. Let us help you. Like, even if, like, I've said this before, if people would just post their lifting videos or movements in the Discord, like 100 of us would help in on how to fix it. But if you want to hop on a Zoom call, I will, we can arrange something, and I'll help you with your hinge and your squat. Push and a pull, I think, are really simple movements. I think we get that. Overhead press, right? Horizontal.
Yeah.
But hinge and a squat, I think, and then so let's set up a Zoom time, and then I'll give you the movements to help ingrain those a little better. Because I can sit here and give you a million things, but until I see you move, I don't know what you actually need.
Okay.
You just shoot me a message on Discord, and, like, let's get this taken care of.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And I'm just saying that in a way, like, I want you to get over this back thing, not because I'm tired of you talking about it. It's just, it's like, I feel like it's in your way of getting you where you want to go. So let's get this taken care of, so we can just move on to what we really want to do, and not have to be hesitant or afraid or not confident with the movement, or let's build that confidence. Let's stop putting that off. Because if it's simple, like it could be a simple fix, not fix. It could be a simple movement that we can improve, fairly easy. So that's where I would start. Pick an
Thanks,
implement.
man.
Yeah, pick an implement. Watch some of a video I posted a couple of weeks ago on how to put a program together, and then just ask questions. It's a lot of self-study, right? Or asking or hiring a coach. It's like marketing. You can either pay for marketing with your time or you pay it with your money. It's the same with like learning things. Either you pay it with your time or you're going to pay someone else to teach you with your money. That's why people join 16 or did we change the name yet to Not Dead Yet?
Not dead yet.
That's why people join this, right? It's a cheat code. And I think coaching is a cheat code. Strength is a cheat code. But if you don't have the investment or the money for it, I agree. The self-taught and learning is going to be the biggest thing.
Well, originally, my very first time I injured it was I did hire a coach, and I was just doing like a Romanian deadlift with dumbbells, and that's what set it off. And ever since then, I get issues, even with no body weight, just like reaching down to say stretch, touch your toes. That was the last time, and it just locked out.
Yep.
So
Another thing we have to think about with pain is that it's not always just a movement thing either. Pain's a protective mechanism. So pain doesn't always mean like there's damage. It's like an overprotective mother sometimes. It doesn't want it's also perceived threats. So if your nervous system perceives a threat of any type of movement, it's going to send pain signals so you avoid those motions. Even if it is a safe movement and you feel like you shouldn't have pain there, your brain controls everything. So I've been reading a lot of brain stuff lately, and like the analogy of like hardware, software, operating systems, like we control everything, right? So sometimes we need to update our operating systems. Like we all buy new phones, we all update our operating systems. It's the same with us. Like our body communicates on electricity. So, it could be very simple. It could be a stress induced. Are you getting enough sleep, right? Are you eating the right things? It's not necessarily always the movement. So this is in what we call the biopsychosocial model, right? They used to think that biology was really all that there was when it came to pain, but we have to look at psychology and sociology also. It's all important, right? So we can fix your pattern, but we also have to look at the environment and the current lifestyle and behaviors that we're currently choosing to do, right? And it might be a confidence thing. You just don't feel confident doing certain movements, so you avoid them. But you can't avoid them because you need them to live the life you want. So we have to start to build confidence. There's like a disconnect between the brain and the body, right? They don't trust each other. Right now it's kind of a sketchy relationship between the two. So we got to get them talking and communicating and putting them together to build confidence. And we do that through movement, breath work, everything we talk about kind of in here. But let's hop on a call and fix that hinge. Like maybe we could do that, right? I'll do these calls like, hey, I'll fix your squat, and everybody can just show me their squats, and we can do it right on a Zoom call.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Because like I said, it could be a fairly easy thing to build that confidence. Sean, that was my brain. What was your brain doing with your hip while benching today?
It just started to basically trigger pain when like it wasn't hurting. It's just a little inflamed from yesterday. So like getting in my normal bench position after like a rep or two, it was just like, hey, I think this hurts. But then as soon as I would like move, like not even really changing position, like I could like slide my knee in, out, not really do anything, and to be like, no, you're fine. Like you're just hurting and being annoying today.
Yeah. And I mean, but here's the other thing. The other side of that is there actually could be something going on in his brain's trying to tell him like, hey, we need to address something. there were not Sean in particular, but I know for a lot of lifters is that aches and pains they've often chalk up as this is part of the gig, which it is to some extent. But I also feel that some of it, a lot of it can, I don't want to say be avoided, but we can reduce nothing. We can't, I don't like when people promise that, hey, we'll guarantee, like you won't get injured, right? You can maybe reduce the risk of injury, but you can't guarantee someone can't get injured. But I think, sometimes pain's it's communication. And like Sean was saying, like, hey, the body said, hey, we're in pain. Sean's like, nah, dude, you're fine. Sometimes that is just a conversation. Like, okay, maybe he's right. I don't know. He's the ultimate controller. And if it really is an issue, the pain gets louder. That's how I look at it. If it's just something that pops up, like, just ignore it.
Same.
But if it continues to come back, then it's something. It's like when people, why does the same thing keep happening to me? I don't know. Maybe life's trying to teach you something. It's the same with pain. When pain keeps coming back, it's trying to teach you something. And we need to, but what happens is it gets frustrating, right? Because it's painful and you don't know what to do. And most people have tried every option, or chiropractors or PTs have ruined. Like for you, Jason, like a personal trainer put you in a position to get hurt and then didn't do anything to help you. So now you have a bad experience with a personal trainer or coach, which makes you more apprehensive to want to go get help because you've had previous experiences that are bad. That sucks. Again, another reason why our field needs like governing body or at least some higher thing. Anyways, what else? What else everybody got? All right, so to create a system for fitness, right? This was something I wanted to talk about. Right, like, so again, like exercise is just something. Okay, what is the actual definition of exercise? Activity requiring physical effort carried out for improvement of health and fitness, right? So we exercise, we use it as a way to train our fitness. And fitness is the condition of being physically fit and healthy, or the quality of being suitable to fulfill a particular role or task. Or the biology definition, an organism's ability to survive and reproduce in an environment, right? So when we look at setting up a system for exercise, and this is actually what we built our clinic's training philosophy on, is we actually just took the CDC's recommended guidelines for minimal effective dose for overall health and well-being, which I think is like 30 minutes of movement 5 days a week, 2 days of strength training. So all we did to like, huh?
2? Really?
For strength training, yeah.
Wow. All right.
Well, we have to look at what it's for. It's geared towards the general population, right? So what is the, not, I don't like saying least amount, but like, what's the bare minimum we have to do to maintain health and strive off chronic disease? Because most of the people, like 1 out of 10 people over, I think 30 or 40 have, or 7 out of 10, sorry, have chronic disease, which means it's an environmental, whatever. So that's actually how we set up minimal effective dose. Yes, Josh, I like that. And I use it, but not just in this thank you. I was looking for that word all day when I was writing that ebook the other day. I just kept saying bare minimum. Anyways, so minimal effective dose. We talk about this in training. What's the minimal effective program? Minimal viable program. What's the least amount we have to do to get the results? So CDC activity guidelines. I just want to read from the source before, because Sean said really like, oh, maybe I am wrong.
Oh, no, I've never actually looked at it. Just 2 days surprised me.
So the CDC says we know 150 minutes of physical activity each week is what we need to do to help get rid of like chronic disease. Okay. So each week, adults need 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity and 2 days of muscle strengthening activity. Okay. So that's how anybody who's not meeting that bare minimum, that's where we start. for anybody, any new client I'm working with, this is where we're starting. I don't care if they say they want to train 3, 4, 5 days a week. We start with 2 days of strength training a week. I want to see, can you do the minimum effective dose? Can you do the minimum to take care of yourself, right? And moderate intensity aerobic activity is brisk walking, right? So 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week of brisk walking is what the CDC recommends, and then 2 or more days of strength training, full body. Yeah, so, but I think it's the CD. I really like this what the CDC did because it looks at not only the heart health, because the heart issues are the #1 killer in our country. It's heart issues. So doing cardiovascular based activities, a lot of zone 2, 3 type work is why they say 150 minutes, which I really like, but most people neglect this. They do more of the strength training and not so much of the aerobic activity. But I like the muscle strengthening also because they're looking at the importance of all of the systems as one. Yeah. Yeah, no, Josh, I agree. The 2 days is on point for most of the general public. And if no one's ever trained before, just 1 day a week is great. Like, yeah, that's still strength. Everything is strength training when you're weak. Or if you don't do anything, everything is strength training. Right? So I don't, we kind of got to get out. They recommend muscle strengthening activities. So lifting things, doing hard things, I guess. So 2 full body days. So there you go, Jason. There's your 2 days. It's hinge, squat, push, pull, twice a week. That's what I would do. The same movements on both days, because it's not gonna. You're not gonna have any. You're not gonna do too much. So you start with 2 and commit to that for however long, right? 2 days a week, strength training. 30 minutes. They don't put a time on the strength training. Or you can do 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity. But yeah, that's actually, like I said, that's what we base the model of our clinic on is 2 days a week strength training. That's the membership we're selling for the gym portion is 2 days a week strength training with optional 3rd day of movement and recovery to start. Because if people can't even meet that, and most of the people I'm working with are pretty deconditioned, right? The people who haven't been in the gym, who haven't been there in a while, who have been in pain for a while. So if we can get them to 2 days a week, we're going to have a huge effect on their overall sense of well-being. So that's where I would start with anybody is, hey, we're going to walk 5 days a week or 150 minutes. Get there how you can. Some days can be different. What was that?
Oh, I was just, one thing that I had a lot of success with clients like that when I was doing all this was, look, you eat twice a day, go walk 10 minutes after each meal. Mm-hmm. I know we've gone back and forth on the habits thing, but making that a habit of, after you eat, just go walk for 10 minutes. If you eat twice a day, there's 140 minutes of your cardio right there.
Yeah, nope, I agree. And Josh, I said this to Sean about I think habits are important, but if we don't tie a quality we're trying to embody, later, Sean, appreciate you. I think if we don't look at like the behavior and the quality we're trying to embody and the person we're trying to become, then we're living on autopilot, which I think we talked about being intentful with our habits. I like that, right? Like when, hey, I'm done eating, dishes are washed. No, I had a really lengthy conversation with Sean about it. What the conclusion I finally worked through to get there. But yeah, no, but why are we walking? It's so we can be healthy, so we can be capable. We're not just walking to walk because that's what you're supposed to do. It's because we want to be healthy and we want to be able to do things with our friends and family and not have to worry about our health giving out on us. That's why we're walking. Right. Now, walking is important, right? You've tied this behavior to a quality you're trying to embody, right? But the habit is, hey, when the plate is cleared and dinner's done, we're out the door. Or after I'm done eating, it's the same. As soon as I'm done with dinner, dishes have to get washed, because if I don't wash them right after dinner, those things will sit there for a couple of days. Same with laundry. My laundry's probably been in the dryer for 2 days, and the wife's like, "Hey, can you please go fold through the laundry?" And I'm like, I don't want to do it.
3 days.
You know, and that's a quality I'm trying to embody, is being cleanliness, is keeping order. And you know, it's something I've had trouble with for a while. And yeah, my wife, we're the very opposite. Right. So, you know, Jay, that's it too, is just, again, everyone I work with, it's, why is this shit important to you? Why are you here? Anybody that walks into my client for the first time, why are you here? Why is this important to you? Why are you spending your time, money, and resources on this, wanting to get better? And if you don't have a reason, then we need to sit there and figure that out first before I can say, hey, this is the program you need to follow. Right? We have to tie it into a higher purpose or sense of being. Otherwise, this was it too, is like, habits to me are like automatic things, or things we don't have to think about. Right? So if we're not thinking, we're living on autopilot. Now, yes, I understand that habits help free our brain up to do higher level things, and we can apply ourselves to things that matter. But most people don't do higher level things. They just live on autopilot, and their habits keep them sustained long enough so they don't die. They keep them fed, slept, and a sense of safety. But we have to have those habits. We have to be healthy of mind and body so we can move on to the next level. Right? We have to train daily, whether that's movement, walking, strength training, whatever. Everything's training. I forgot where I was going with that. We have to be intent. So we have, like, I have to train every day because I have to have a healthy mind and body, so I don't have to worry about being like a liability, so I can continue to be at my business every day. I can't afford to get sick for my family, so I have to train and take care of myself. Otherwise, I become a liability. Well, now the business is running, and now I have to learn new habits or skills or behaviors, right? So just building, you know, tying in why you want to do these things is really, really important. You know, if being a healthy, capable human being is important to you, then it becomes, okay, what does that look like? Is that moving daily? Is that strength training twice a week? Cool. Let's walk 30 minutes a day, and let's strength train twice a week for 30 minutes. Hell, that strength training, if it's vigorous enough, you know, which most of it isn't, but you move 5 days, you train 2 days. I think that's a solid prescription for most people. And then once you have a general foundation of fitness or gym, what you've built in the gym, then you can start to get into, oh, I want a power lift, or I want an Olympic lift. Or I think a lot of people jump right into powerlifting and they skip the whole like learning of gym movements. They just go right into throwing a barbell in their hand or on their back, and they want to lift heavy. And then we actually have to not regress, but meet them where they're at. And strong people don't like that. It is what it is. Cool. Anything else? How's everyone doing? Anything exciting going on? Our clinic opens Monday, the 5th. So there's that. Yeah. It's cool. It's really cool, man.
Oh.
Huh?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It's really wild, fellas. I've been sitting on this idea for a while. I put myself through massage school because I believed in the idea, and I just needed a doctor to believe in me to support it so we could build it, and found one. So it's been cool to watch a place get completely demoed and our vision for the facility finally take shape and fruition, to see the weight room I had mapped out on a pencil now be in front of me and how I want it to flow and work. It's pretty wild. But shit takes time, right? I mean, this has been 5 years. I've dreamed of it, but I've been in the field for almost 15. But I've had the vision, and there's been times where I've wanted to quit, and I thought this is stupid, or that no one's going to want this. The brick and mortar is a dumb idea. It's still, I think, a dumb idea. But you know, I already have the next 5 years planned out in my head. This is just the next checkbox in the vision, right? This is just, okay, what do I got to do next to get the next thing? All right, well, this is what I got to do, right? That's how you build those skills, whether it's lifting, training, building a business, learning how to cook, learning to play guitar, behavior change, all of that. You have to learn. There's basic fundamental skills of everything, and it still comes down to those things. Like running a business, there's fundamental things of running a business. In marketing, there's fundamental things you have to do. Copywriting, fundamentals. So whatever it is you're trying to learn, like just what are the basics or the fundamentals of those things, and then just get really fucking good at them. So for the gym, get really good at the fundamental gym movements: squat, hinge, push, pull, and carry heavy shit. It'll do wonders. Same with cooking. Cooking is the next thing I want to explore, part of like my personal thing, and teaching people how to cook, not by recipe, but by methods, right? So they have these different ways that they can pull from the methods to build meals instead of following a recipe. I still think following a recipe is like following a program written for someone else. It's written for someone else's goals, for their body, for their goals and what they're trying to do. Same with the recipe. It's built on their tastes, their experiences, and where they learned that recipe from. But if you learn the methods behind the recipe, you can then build your own recipes.
Your food looks awesome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I love cooking, and I want to show people like, hey, like if you can just learn these simple things, you can make delicious meals. Because most of it is real simple. But that's it too. Like I think Austin, you and I talked about that. Like Jason, I think if movement, learning how your body moves, I think could be really beneficial for you. You know, just exploring that. And you know, Austin, we talked about it when we had our one-on-one call about like just get your feet wet. Just do the next thing to get where you need to go. Okay, what can I do today? Someone that it embodies the characteristic of healthy. What can I do today? Someone that embodies the characteristic of integrity. What is that? What can I do today to embody that characteristic, right? What do you guys value? And then just get to work. Doesn't have to be outlandish, right? For reading, it can be one page. For writing, it can be a sentence. But if you do that daily, you just stack those wins, right? So, Jay, let's hop on a Zoom call. Shoot me a message with like availability, and we'll just knock this out.
Cool, man.
Yeah, let's get this. I mean, let's have a conversation. Let's figure out where you're at, and let's just come up with a plan. Like, you know what I mean? Let's get this taken care of, because you've been kind of working through it since you joined the group, and I can't sit here and watch you as a movement professional and guy that just wants to help everybody. This is what I'm offering. It's up to you to take the next step and get on a call with me. Same for everybody. Anybody that watches this later, like if there's stuff you want to talk about, or there's movement stuff or training stuff you want to talk about, just shoot me a message and let's talk. I can talk about this stuff all day, especially movement and pain issues.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that too, Nick. Just getting back into the gym and using a bit more weight.
Sure.
Things have been feeling good, but just out of curiosity, some feedback and maybe some cues and stuff for me to remember.
Yeah,
that'd be fantastic.
Yep. And yeah, and like let's just do it. Let's just do it.
That's awesome.
Any questions? I know it's almost 8, but is there anything else anybody has questions on or wants to add, or?
Random, but did you record that call that it was just me and you?
I did. I can send it to you. I didn't know if I wanted to share it, because that was kind of. I share it with you. Yeah, I have it.
Yeah,
I know I have it.
I was like, oh, is it there? Because there's a lot of nuggets for me, but I just like to rewatch it for sure.
Yeah, maybe I will post it for everybody to watch, unless you don't want me to. It's your call.
I don't mind. Yeah. I didn't have a lot of input, but I was listening.
Yeah, hear me say this. Well, it's good. It's good practice. I don't know, like, so part of this thing, when Matt asked me to be a part of it, I was nervous at first. I remember my first call almost a year ago, and I was pretty nervous. But I saw it as a way to, one, educate, but get practice talking to people about my ideas, which are still, I feel, not new, but they're different, right? And Matt's giving me a platform to do that. So I appreciate people coming in and being open-minded to it. Some people aren't, but it's cool. Just want people to think differently about things than what we've always been told. So just try new things, man. We talked about in that call, Austin. Like, if you feel called to do something, or something moves you, or something inside you is like that, was where I'm at today, is that like my mind and my behavior are on two separate pages. Right. I posted about it today. Is like, I usually coast in December. I'll coast to the end of the year, but the clinic opens on Monday. My behaviors aren't aligning with what I want, just because life's been chaotic lately. So like, not bad habits, but old behaviors or behaviors I can find it in. But when I do that, and I avoid like moving daily, journaling, and writing daily, like my life tends to get out of whack. So to realign myself here over the next 4 weeks to create momentum into the new year. And, the way we do that is getting back into the things that fill your cup, make you feel whole, try to create some alignment, right? I know I'm out of alignment. I've been there before. That's why you need to have things in I think Matt's talked about it before. That's why he does the cold plunge, the journaling, the daily stuff. But like he said Sunday, what did he say? Like 80% of the time is what we got to try to strive for, right? Some days it's not always perfect. That's just the way it is. You're human. You're complex. It's not as simple as yes or no, good or bad. Like, humans are complex. So we have to be kind to ourselves and give ourselves grace, but also be like, okay, now what are we going to do about it? So what? Now what? Like, when people say stuff like complain, or you're going through a hard time, like, I know it sounds like being an asshole, but like, so what? Now what are we going to do about it? Right? Otherwise you're just complaining to complain, not to offer solutions. So it's when I'm having a hard time, I know what I need to do to get back on track. And that's what part of this group is, learning these behaviors and these things. You'll notice that when you do go through tough times or things feel out of alignment, you'll notice you're probably not doing the things you were doing when you were aligned. So when you're feeling good, you want to keep track of what you were doing then, what was working, why was I in such a good place? And you'll notice it's usually you're not doing the things you were doing then. That's why I always tell people, when you're feeling good, take note of what you're doing, what's going on. So when you're feeling bad, you can always, okay, this is what I was doing then. What can I take and do now? And that's kind of, even if it's little, right? That's what Matt talked about, floor and the ceiling, like minimum effective dose. If you're trying to learn how to read or journal or breathe, what's the minimum effective dose for that behavior to be considered a win for you? For some people, it's literally 5 breaths. I don't want to do breath work. Breath work's stupid. Cool. I just want you to do 5 breaths a day, where you just sit and just do nothing but breathe for 5 breaths. Because now what are you teaching, right? You're teaching people to be present. You're teaching them to just focus on one thing. You're teaching them to relax, and you're giving them a tool.
Man, I can't believe the difference in the breath work since I've been doing it with that you prescribed me. It's crazy.
When you commit to the cadences, man, it's pretty wild.
And the presence too. Like, I remember when I first started doing the 5 minutes that you prescribed, and I'm like, man, when is this going to end? And I'd look at my watch, and it's been a minute and a half.
Oh, dude, it's the worst.
now it's been 5 minutes, and now it's like 5 minutes, and I'm just there and ready to keep going. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's
it's
cool,
amazing.
man.
And that's been what, I don't know, 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Body adapts.
Yeah, it's really cool.
How do you feel? Like, do you feel, obviously you've done a lot of other things, so we can't just chalk it up to breathing, but I noticed that your CO2 tolerance score is higher, and I think it's a direct correlation to how you're currently feeling. You don't seem as stressed. Things are kind of coming under control. You're feeling good. You might be sleeping a little better. So that number tends to correlate with a lot of other things. So I can tell a lot about someone on how low their score is and the mechanics and the way they breathe. I can tell everything I need to know from a physiological standpoint.
Yeah, overall, I'm feeling a big difference, but yeah, it's definitely multifactorial. But yeah, it was like a 20-second change in the CO2 tolerance, so that was pretty good.
I usually find when people are at like 30 seconds, they're usually feeling like a lot better.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was just gonna add, like with habits and behavior changes and stuff, like I've noticed it's been good for me to have like a couple options in the toolkit. Like, you have your breath work, and I've been doing the the cadence 2 breath work for 5 minutes every day, like regardless if you've told me to do it that day or not. I've just found that to be really helpful in the mornings. But if I'm running late or something happens, I'm like, okay, I can do box breathing on my drive to work. Like that's another helpful tool to have. Or I've been journaling more long form every morning, but I also have the 5 minute journal app on my phone. So that takes a couple minutes and it's still getting that stuff down. And it's just nice having a couple things in the toolkit.
Yeah, no, then that's what I mean. And then giving yourself grace to know that it's okay if I don't do that. That's like everyone's like, oh, what's the best? Hold on, I got someone wants to come in the call. Like, what's the best morning routine, right? Like, what my routine is going to work for you. Someone else's tips or hacks for their life isn't what's best for you or your life. You got to figure that shit out. So, like, when it comes to breathing, right, we have to give you a couple different options. Right? For people who don't want to sit and do breathing, I'll target it with like movement, right? Okay, cool. You're going to hold isometric positions, and we're just going to do breath work that way. So it's training, but we're going to do breath work at the same time. Marcus, what's up, man?
Yo, how's it going?
Good. I hate to say this, but this call it starts at 7.
Oh, I'm shit. I'm sorry.
You are great, man. My call is just my call during the week. It starts at 7, just because of my child and life things. My call's at 7 on Tuesdays.
Shit. Okay, so I'm an hour late. I'm on East West Coast time, so I got a little confused. So it's am
You're
I
good. You
okay?
are, yeah. You're an hour late. We have a couple West Coast people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
deal with
guys.
that day every day.
yeah.
All right, I'll just check it out and record. Thank you guys.
Yeah, I mean, you can hang out the last couple minutes. But yeah, Austin, I think it's really huge, right? Like if we have tools at our disposal and we know how to use those tools and when to use those tools, I think it's very valuable. Right? I had that thought today. You know, having these tools is great, and knowing how to use them is what gives us this ability to build our life this way. Right? Oh, I couldn't do cadence 2 for 5 minutes, but I got a minute to do, 4-4-4-4 breathing or box breathing. Right? You just make it work. And my routine or my plan and what works for me, it might not what works for you. You got to trial and error and try things, and that's the morning routine thing. I think you have to build it, but it starts with one thing, right? If you have 20 minutes, like what's the one thing you want to get done in those 20 minutes that would be a successful day at the bare minimum? What's the least amount, the minimum effective dose you have to do in the morning for your morning routine to be effective? Is it just a cold shower, right? It's just, if I take a cold shower, great. Everything else is just bonus. Start looking at routines and habits and things like that, like minimum, like Matt was talking about on Sunday, like what's the minimum that we have to do for this to be successful? And then everything else is just added bonus.
Yeah, I've noticed a huge difference with my job, like being a nurse, clinical nurse leader. I walk on the floor at 7 and it's just like cleaning up shit instantly. It's just a gong show every day. But if I at least get like 10 to 20 minutes of positive things in the morning, makes a huge difference. And like at the retreat, Matt kind of called the morning routine as like putting your oxygen mask before helping other people or whatever your job is. And that really stuck with me. And I was like, holy shit, that's a fantastic way to put it. And that's the way that it feels. So
it's the tone setter. It sets the tone for the day, and that's, my wife said this to me, like, she's like, a couple years ago, if the morning routine, you didn't get everything done you said you would get done, it would put me in a bad mood, right? Because I would beat myself up. You said you were going to do these 5 things and you didn't do these 5 things, and like, how you say you want this, and it's like, what's the least I have to do for me to not be in a shitty mood, right? So it was just, at the time, it was just breathing, right? It was just 2 minutes of breathing, and it was a successful start today. I did 2 minutes. I did something for me before I opened my phone and gave my time and energy to someone else, before I talked to my wife, before I made coffee. It's starting that day with me before I give it to everybody else. So cool, guys. Marcus, I apologize. I usually put the time, but I forget we have new people sometimes, and we will set this recording up. Marcus, tonight we just talked about training, just gym movements, how to start an exercise routine and build like a training system for yourself.
Cool. Just a quick question. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
How long does it take to upload like the recordings? Because I was actually super interested.
I mean, I can do it right now.
Okay, that'd be great.
I mean, if you
I'd
give me
love to.
like 10 minutes,
Sweet.
so it's got to like convert and do this thing and another thing, and then I got to do another thing and do the thing. But
Do all the things.
but I can get it up here, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it.
Yep. Jason, shoot me that message. Austin, we will talk soon. Marcus, it was good to see your face for the first time. If you need anything, obviously, this is the first time we've really talked, but I am one of the coaches. My calls are typically geared towards training and like building the machine. We talk about a little bit of mindset stuff here and there, but Matt, Johans, and Elliot take care of like the mind part. I take care of the body part. Cool. All right, fellas. I'll see you when I see you. Appreciate you, and I will see everybody when I do.
Mark with the clinic, man.
Thank
Stoked.
you. Appreciate it.